as Rachel was just talking about, D2C, it's my favourite topic. I spend a lot of time talking to marketers about how they can build direct relationships with their customers. At the Marketing Society, we spend a lot of time talking about marketers who are trying to catch up and deal with digital disruption. And I really wanted to put together a panel this year that talked to people who were well ahead of this trend, especially here in APAC, and how they were approaching it here in APAC. So I'm really excited to have 3 practitioners who are really close to their customers and building audience segments around acquisition as well as retention and upselling, and continuing to expand their relationship with their customers as well as their services they offer those customers. So thanks for being here, gentlemen. On the diversity topic, there was a lot of effort to get women here as well, but always a challenge. They're always busy doing actual work, no offence. No offence, it's fantastic to have you here, guys. So, on that topic, you all have built really interesting businesses using data and understanding your audience segments. Can you talk a little bit about what are the metrics that matter to you when you're measuring the success of what you're doing? And thinking about the people in this room that are going to talk a lot about measurability and viewability and transparency. What matters to you, and how do you measure the outcomes of what you're trying to achieve?
So for Carousel, we're a C2C marketplace app, and what that means is that you need 2 things: supply and demand. I think it's kind of similar to Grab. It's just that both our buyers can be sellers, our sellers can also be buyers, and we need to actually build up the density and the liquidity within a location, and it's usually very hyper-local because a lot of people meet up to transact in person. Not every market has the opportunity to complete your payments and your shipping on the app itself. So we look at it market to market. So every market we look at the metrics slightly differently, but for the most part, it's all about building the density at a really hyper-local level, and building the sellers and the buyers. So when we talk about user acquisition, we typically spend most of our money acquiring sellers and people who are listing the item for the first time. And that means we just look for sellers by categories as well. So are these sellers actually building up the GMV by category as well? So there's a lot of, as we go deeper and deeper, there's further metrics, but at the top level, it's still about building the density. And I think that's what impacts our business the most.
Ollie?
So, yeah, I think Grab's, ride-hailing happenings have been quite well documented, and it's quite similar to Carousel in terms of supply-demand market. So the part that I work on now is GrabPay. So actually, it's a new business for Grab relatively, and the metrics, we're going through this transition period where the metrics that are important to us are completely changing, right? So for any wallet business, you look at reach, which you measure by kind of monthly active users, and transaction frequency. So you want people who are sticky on the wallet and who are transacting per MAU. Multiple times through multiple categories, right? So those are the things that we measure. But I think what's different for Grab is in a ride-hailing business, a consumer is activated from the app, and we own that communication channel with consumers through an app. So I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's relatively easier to drive that demand, right? Because we can just directly communicate with them. I think in a payments business, it's even more O2O than ride-hailing. And in an open loops payments business, the payment happens at a merchant at a point of sale that is not owned by Grab, right? That we work with. So I think we're having to get smart about how we use our data and our app to get people to pay at a point of sale that we don't own, right? And that's actually where the location data that kind of comes from transport becomes useful for us, and we're starting to kind of unlock new ways to do that.
So it's so interesting that they have apps to track it, but ours is B2B. So first thing we look at is how much of the internet population should we target? It's like 5 to 10% in any market. So that's just 10% of the internet population that we should be targeting. Now the second thing is the life cycle of the product, right? And the decision-making time. The decision-making time is around like 2 to 3 years, or 2 to 3 months. So we start by engagement metrics on our site. How are these people interacting with our products on the site? How many times they are coming back again on the site? But that's not enough for us. It's like we need to track marketing qualified leads, then it should convert into sales qualified lead. That's the endpoint where the KPI is met. So it's a bit complicated process for us, and we have built our in-house tech stack to actually track end-to-end of all these things. So it starts right from engagement metrics. So engagement metrics here is like person who clicked on the banner, landed on the page, is interacting with each of the architectures like security, collaboration, our data center portfolio, how much time he's spending there. So we did an analysis on the back end to see if a person converts, how many times does he come back to our product portfolio? So based on that analysis, we are actually setting up our KPIs. That's the end.
And in building all of this, do you build it all in-house? Do you build it using partnerships with, like your agency, consultancies? Everyone's interested to know in a D2C world, what role does this room have to play? Like, how do you, Sandeep, kind of build your own stack and then partner with people outside of that?
Yeah, it's quite interesting that the tech stack that we built, the marketing IT team, it comes from Cisco's technology team itself. But the thing is, the knowledge they have is quite immense. And we had to go through hundreds of these platforms to select which platform we should be actually selecting. And finally, we landed up into like 12 to 16 platforms to actually make it as one marketing stack for our marketing team. But beside that, we also have a partners tech stack because Cisco works through partners as well, like Ingram Micro and all those things. So we have thousands of partners there. So we have a separate tech stack for that. So building this started internally in-house from our tech IT team, but selection of the platforms was done based on what KPIs we can achieve based on these platforms. Like we need to track up to sales qualified lead. So that's not an easy process. When we deliver a campaign, we deliver impressions. We actually record the clicks, CTR, visits. When do they convert to SQL? That's a long process. And for that, we had to select each of these platforms using, we have separate vendors which are part of our tech stack. And that was done by our IT team. So this entire process started with the end KPI that we need to meet actually.
I think the approach that we take, right, is kind of what's core to the platform, versus, I guess, what's relatively auxiliary, right? Grab now, right? The whole business is about data, right? All of those core parts we build in-house. That we have to control that, and we have to be able to customize that ourselves. We can't, rely on a software vendor for our own product roadmap, right? But I think the problem that most marketers have within any organization, including an organization like Grab, is the MarTech side is everyone that is an internet company or a non-internet company has a shortage of engineers. There is no company in the world, even in Silicon Valley, that can't say that. So I think we struggle with that as much as anyone, and there's a bunch of stuff that the marketing team at Grab would love to build, but we can't build, right? And we recognize that because the engineers are busy building a wallet and building financial services and building other stuff. So I think we do rely on a bunch of different software and vendors for different things. But I think as it becomes more core, we have to build things in-house. And there are times where we've worked with software vendors and it may have made sense to go with them, and they've got a great platform, but we make the judgment actually, this is actually our core, this is actually our product.
What about understanding, though, on top of that, what you could be doing, to reach new audiences or to make people aware of the services that you're adding, all those kind of things. Like, so beyond the tech itself, like how do you work with the ecosystem? to understand, like, if you're going to launch into the Philippines, for example? Do you work with agencies? Do you work with consultancies? What does that look like?
Okay, so yeah, I think where we launch into new markets, into new verticals, it's actually most about data that we don't own, right? So when you launch into new vertical, it's not like ride hailing where we own a lot of the data in that. For example, launching the wallet in new markets, we are not a wallet business, so we don't have data about millions of merchants. And it's not like our driver data is going to tell us about merchants, right? So I think in those cases we do have to rely on third-party vendors. The company I was at before Grab is App Annie, and we use them a lot for kind of third-party data to understand what's going on in the market, who are the competitors, and how are apps engaging, what kind of engagement rate do people have already. But I think in Asia, that data isn't as necessarily robust as, say, in other parts of the world. I guess most data vendors are primarily built in the States, so they kind of start with their home markets first. Southeast Asia is usually kind of maybe second or third in row. So I think fortunately though, we're getting to the point where the business in Southeast Asia is expanding, that actually the data we get now is pretty robust.
Too. I think we're quite in a similar state as Grab as well, like how Oliver mentioned. And when you talk about launching new markets, again, it goes towards data first. And for us, I think as a company, we feel like data is the key enabler of almost every function within the organization. So what we do in the digital marketing team, for example, we spend a lot of time understanding our users. We have our buyers and our sellers. So we want to know within our platform, within our user base, who are the buyers, who are likely to be buyers, who are likely to be sellers. This then informs us on what to look for when we are launching a different market, because you know what are the triggers, you know what kind of users to look for. And actually, it's going to be an iterative process. Even when you're launching a new market, you have to run on the usual platforms. You have your Facebook, your Google first, because you get your reach there. And once you get like your first 1,000 users there, your successful sellers, that's when you will start actually getting this deeper level data about the users within the markets and what drives them. And until you actually run a campaign, you're not going to know that. So I think that's the most important part of this whole process, is actually just running ahead, doing a campaign, and then getting the results from it.
I completely agree with that. I think anyone who works at a startup kind of like Carousel at Grab, you always feel uneasy compared to when you work at other companies, because these companies just launch their products so early, right? And you're kind of like, well, guys, we haven't even done like a strategy deck and we're kind of already launching. But that is the modus operandi, right? Like the best data is the data that you create yourself from those first 1,000 users, and you just got to go with that sometimes. Yeah.
Agreed. And it's like, again, it also informs the product decisions. When you get these users in first, then you can actually run your surveys, etc.
I think it's almost the same, that we are also data driven, but the approach is a bit different for us. So it starts all from our customers who we already have right now. So we do some sort of research, we understand them, who they are. Second thing, then we run the audience discovery report at the back end to see which data partners can help us, actually. And when the audience discovery report doesn't match the actual behavior of the existing customers, we don't target those type of data. That's one thing. The second thing is, like, we try to analyze what sort of products we should promote there. So recently we did an analysis on one of the market in Asia Pacific, and we figured out that dual band gigabit routers were searched like anything, like 3,000% jump. So it gives us an understanding, like how should we actually promote our products, which type of products we should be promoting. So the entire planning starts from existing customers. And then we study who are the new customers, how they should look like. So it's like just like a lookalike, which happens on the platform, but in a different way.
So you can't really have a panel at ATS without talking about the duopoly. And spend concentration in advertising is really focused on, or the media talking about it is really focused on Google and Facebook. How big a partner are they to you guys in terms of how you acquire and engage and get data to drive your businesses? And in Asia, is it different for you? Like in the different markets you're operating in, do you go beyond that? And do you really rely on them as much as the press likes to make out, or are you building different strategies?
I think for us, Facebook and Google still make a decent part of our spends. I won't say how much, but still decent. But I think it's definitely reduced year on year because obviously there are more channels in the market. And by channels, I mean, yes, we will go with your DSPs, etc. But then there are also ad networks, and then there are direct publishers. So we sort of diversify our channel mix. But then at the end of the day, you still need to look back and see which channel is driving the most value for you. So it could still be Facebook or Google at the end of the day. And we are channel agnostic on that front. And we will, you'll look at the users who are coming with the best retention rates, who are listing the most, who are chatting the most. And then we will reallocate budgets to the channel that's actually driving those kinds of users.
Yeah, no, I mean, we make Facebook guys and Google guys quite happy because we spend some money with them. So thank you to you people from Facebook and Google. But I think what we're finding is because we're an O2O business, right? There are some things that you can, spend on Facebook and Google to drive that kind of business. There are actually some things where Facebook and Google don't necessarily own all of the data in the real estate to get that full kind of O2O attribution. I think they're both investing in those areas, right? So, obviously maps for a lot of companies, including ourselves, is an incredibly useful product. I think though a couple of things. Number one, given the inflation of online advertising prices, throughout Grab's history, actually, and this is not a recent thing, we've found that acquiring, say, drivers, spend a crap load of money on Facebook and Google for that. But we've also found that acquiring them through offline methods can be cheaper and actually can be scalable. So we're trying kind of new ways of, it's kind of almost like B2B offline growth marketing in a way, right? And you guys may have seen in the press, there's kind of a lot of reports in places like Indonesia and Philippines where companies like us, fill a whole shopping mall or a stadium with people who want to become drivers, and actually the costs per acquisition on that event, right, and the production cost of that is actually better than paying an increasingly inflated price online, right? So we still do both, right? But we need to complement because people have different touch points. The other thing about the duopoly, I guess, is we realized that a lot of the data that one needs for that online to offline, we have, right? So people are using the Grab app when they go to a shopping center, when they go home. So we're starting to realize actually, we use this data for ourselves. Why not unlock that for partners that we work with? And that's something we're starting to do. So increasingly, we're scaling this right now, but increasingly, when you arrive at Iron Orchard, why shouldn't Grab be pushing you? Hey, well, we know that we've got this merchant at Iron Orchard who sells cupcakes, and you've redeemed on cupcakes before a Grab Rewards. Let us tell you about something that's going on there, right? And that's a relevant touch point because we know you and because we know that you've gone from A to B. So I think increasingly, we'll be working with people in the advertising ecosystem to provide more of that data so that not just us but other people can benefit.
So I think this is different for us a bit. Google definitely has a place for us, but for Facebook, I will not comment right now because we are just trying to see how much we can allocate budget there. But when it comes to Google, it's a multi-diverse platform, right? It has search, it has DBM. So when it comes to search, it's intent-based marketing. So it has some place for us. Like, yes, we should be there because if somebody is searching for routers, we should be always on top for that. When it comes to DVM, again, it comes to based on, like, we are channel agnostic at that point. Like, if it is performing in any market, definitely we should allocate more budget. But when it comes to market like Japan, Korea, we have our local, vendors there to operate with us. So it's a bit of a change. I mean, it's a diverse way of allocating the budget in different markets. We don't go by just it's Facebook, just allocate budget, not like that. So it's all about like what market thinks. Maybe like WeChat will be somewhere, Line may be somewhere, Yahoo in Japan, Naver in Korea. So it's diversified.
Actually, I just want to add on. I think for us, another slice of the data is also important. And like I mentioned before, location. So any channel that's actually able to target and give us scale just by targeting a smaller location is important to us. And actually, that limits also some of the channels that we can work on depending on the market. So if you take Singapore and Hong Kong for example, we don't need to go like estates or whatever and target them, but in markets like Malaysia and Indonesia and Philippines, we actually need to target a really hyper local level to build up the density. So on that front, things get a bit complicated, and that's where we actually have to rely on data to see if this channel that may not have really great geo-targeting capability, is it actually still driving value for us in terms of users? And by adopting this sort of approaches with the data, we were actually able to reduce our acquisition cost by almost 60% year on year.
I think just to add there, we have an interesting aspect of our targeting that is called account-based marketing, right? Because we don't sell products at individual level, we sell it to organization level. So who can actually operate those type of account-based targeting? That's a bigger, challenge for us. And if you think about this, the product we sell, they have a lifespan. So we know that this guy or this organization, their product is going to age out very soon. So there's an opportunity to resell them. So we have those type of data which we built internally. We have our own algorithms running to identify all those type of models and everything. So on which platforms can we insert those type of data? That also makes a lot of that has some sort of decision making for us.
And can we talk a bit, Sandeep? So you're in a very big traditional B2B company, but you've won the Stackies. Am I allowed to talk about Chief Martech? You've won his Marketing Tech Stack Award for a couple of years now. What drove that in your business? So for people working with more legacy businesses here in the room, like how did you guys get to a point where you took so much control of your relationship with your customer and really built out an ecosystem where you could understand these kind of metrics for yourselves?
Yes, the first thing that I mentioned was building the tech stack, right? And the second was the KPIs that we need to set. So the way we work on the KPIs is the engagement points, return visits, MQL and SQL. Marketing has to drive revenue for us. That's the end goal. And our stakeholders need to go and present to their stakeholders that yes, this marketing is driving the revenue. So we need to have a platform whereby we can take in charge of everything. We have the data flow streams coming in, and we can say like, yes, XYZ channel has given us this much of SQL, these accounts were visited by this. So we went through the entire this tech stack review, which platforms can help us achieve our KPIs. So it was a long process, to be honest. It was a very robust roadmap. We had gone through that. And then we actually customized it based on different markets, like in APAC. It may not be possible because the data streams here are different. So technology can be same. Algorithm-wise, we need to change a bit. And then data-wise, definitely we have to make more room for that in our markets.
Where did it start from, though? Because I think talent and vision is half the challenge, right? Like tech can do anything, but from what I see, it's process and people that don't understand the opportunity and don't understand how to connect it all together. So was it the CEO who drove it, the CMO who drove it, the CIO who drove it? Like, what does it look like and did it come from global? Did it come out of the region?
I think it's like it came from global, but when somebody has that vision, there should be someone who can realize it, right? So he started, like our vice VP started discussing about this, and all the teams came together and said, yes, we can do it. The thing is, first time when you think about B2B industry, tracking end-to-end goal, like I was sitting with another vendor and I told them, if I run campaign on your platform, will you be able to give me the details where I can track all my accounts, whom you targeted through your platform, and I can check how much of engagement metrics happen on that. So that was quite difficult at his end because that level of targeting was not available. But sometimes people start laughing, is it possible? But that was done, you know. So that vision was created, and then that talent definitely makes sense, you know. Talent has to be there to actually realize that vision come true. So people should know about APIs, people should know about those IP targetings, people should know about everything, the coding and everything, right? And then the majority of the time was wasted on like understanding the platform itself, whether this platform will make sense for us or not. There were hundreds of platforms, but we came to a conclusion of 12 to 16 platform only. So all those things has to be there. So talent should be there, vision should be there, and more like roadmap should also be there, a proper roadmap which should be customized to your markets.
How about for you guys running these startups, etc., and trying to scale your businesses at speed here in this region? There's one thing having the tools there to be able to do it and the data sets to be able to do it, but then there's also talent and talent challenges. And we all know here in this region in particular, it's quite challenging. And at the Marketing Society, you know, we talk about being brave and we talk about CMOs being not really aware of the level of the disruption and change they need to drive in their businesses. How do you guys find the people and retain the people? Because I would imagine they're in pretty high demand. What's different about your businesses that keeps you guys there? You've both been in your businesses a while, and keeps your teams there.
So when I first joined Carousel, I was like the first person in the company driving paid marketing. So I built up the team from scratch. And I think it has been quite a journey for everyone in the team because I kept hiring fresh graduates because I felt like, you know, this is going to be something different for Carousel. We need to figure out the business is not going to be the traditional form of, I can't call it traditional, but it's not going to be just digital marketing in any e-commerce. So along the way, I think it's been a whole learning process for the entire team, which I think it's the biggest driver in terms of retention of the team. And plus, I think it's all about finding the opportunities for them to keep learning. Within my team now, in just over, I would say 6 to 9 months, now we are building the capability of just, you know, how do we employ machine learning to get better at audience segmentation. And that's something we're building within the team with the help of our central data team as well. So finding these kinds of opportunities for all of the guys in my team to upgrade themselves and also test and be nimble enough to keep testing on a daily basis, I think drives them to want to stay as well.
I think, I mean, look, hiring talent is by far and away our biggest challenge. I think the way we look at it is kind of two things. Like, number one, you know, if you're expecting to find talent that has all the skill sets you want, then you might as well not bother hiring, right? I think the approach that we take is more looking for people's abilities to adapt, right? I think most people, when they join Grab, they're like, whoa, what was this that I just joined? Because the pace that it runs at is just, I mean, I've been in startups the last 10 years and it was an adjustment for me, right? And I think the second thing though is, like, you know, although we've had a lot of success, we're going into new businesses. So we realize that we're going to businesses where we are not the expert, right? And just because we did well in ride hailing doesn't mean we're going to dominate payments or financial services, right? So we're trying to acquire kind of a mix of talent of, you know, people who maybe come from more traditional backgrounds, but have the kind of personality, character, motivations that want to adapt and are willing to come to what is, you know, compared to, say, a big bank, a very unstructured environment, right? And like, that's not for everyone. And actually, often the interviewing, you know, I mean, you can tell someone's skill sets from reading the resume, but you can only tell their character and their ability to adapt from kind of meeting them in person. And often that's what we're kind of looking for.
Sandeep, is there anything anyone in this room can do to help your life get easier?
Anything I can do?
I think, yes, solving this entire, you know, digital, the nuances that we see, like viewability, ad fraud, I think the best is, like, if everyone has the tech stack, would be fine. Like, instead of rebuilding, if everybody has that, the agency should be fine.
Anyone got any last words for the room?
I think to that question, anyone who can help solve the online to offline attribution problem. Like I think for our business and for a lot of businesses, given where internet spaces are going, that's kind of the biggest theme and the biggest challenge. And I don't know. I mean, most of the vendors I know are more purely in the online space. Those are the ones that are big and famous and that everyone kind of household names. The O2O space is just coming up. Maybe I haven't done enough Google searches, but haven't found that many. So I think that's an interesting area that we want to partner with other companies on.
Awesome. Well, we've run out of time. So thank you guys. I really appreciate your openness and good luck for the rest of the day.